Ben Burgis, you ready for your song, man?
Always.
I want to go to mockery really badly.
I will.
So please go.
Okay.
You gotta restrain me. That part always gets me. Logical analysis. You're gonna show us how to argue that. Go.
This is based on data from a bunch of different countries. There's abundant evidence that at this point that's bullshit. Breaking down these right-wing arguments and looking at how they're supposed to fit together.
Okay, break it down. Break it down. Break it down. You pumped? Ben, are you pumped?
Always.
You know, it almost sounds like you were doing like an intentional drop for him.
It does. Yeah, it's actually amazing how well that works.
So Hillary Clinton was on Howard Stern. It would have been awesome if Hillary had to do like voice drops for like a Tradio prank or something, or had to call up another like a disc jockey in Philly and tell him he was a loser. But instead, we were given the spectacle of two people who, between them, their wealth is over $1 billion, just basically distilling everything that's wrong with modern society. Ben, we got a couple of different clips here. Take us through each.
Yeah. So I think that maybe we should start with the one. It's the one in the second email because you mentioned their combined net worth, and I think if you just keep this in mind throughout the whole, it's not a long clip. It's like 30 seconds, but if you keep in mind through this clip, then it should really put into perspective what they're saying here.
Bernie Sanders, and this was a perception I had. Mm-hmm. You would say a policy when you were running against him for the nomination.
Right.
And the next day you go, yeah, well, free college for everyone.
Yeah.
It's almost like when you run for a fifth grade class.
Yeah, right.
I'll give you free everything.
Chocolate milk for everyone
and more recess.
More
pizza. And then it makes it look like you're a stick in the mud.
I know. And then when you say, well, wait a minute, where's the money going to come from? Then what about, are you against free college? Yeah, I know.
Okay.
So first of all, where the money is going to come from, if she was actually curious about this, she could look at Bernie Sanders' website either now or in 2016. It said the same thing then, and find that actually a very modest tax on Wall Street transactions would fund this. So it's kind of funny that she's asking that as a rhetorical question, like there's just no answer to it. Also, on the same lines, we live in a country where lots of kids have school lunch debt, where they school districts will send harassing letters and even threaten, parents about their kids' unpaid school lunch debt. Free milk, not an unreasonable idea.
And it exists in New York City, actually, where they were sitting. Now let's go to, we went from the merits, and Howard knew how to get that out of her, by the way, because she compared Bernie Sanders' basic agenda on equipping everybody for the 21st century with a college education or trade school to 7-minute abs, I think, or 5-minute abs, or whatever the hell in her stupid book. Now here she is just being bitter and embarrassing about Bernie Sanders, who even after everything that happened in the 2016 primary did, we'll get to precisely how much he campaigned for her in a second. And this matters because this is a piece of propaganda and lie that the Clinton people have been trying to seed about Bernie Sanders since at least 2017. Here's Hillary Clinton and Howard Stern talking nonsense and lies about Bernie Sanders and just basic aggrievement.
Those are words that taken, and they also said Bernie Sanders, but,
Pause it.
That's another.
She's also saying that the Russians wanted Bernie Sanders to be president. This Russia brain worm is the ultimate get out of accountability card for all failed, discredited baby boomer politicians, academics, whatever, what have you. All right, keep.
Do we hate Bernie Sanders?
What?
Do we hate Bernie Sanders?
No, I don't hate anybody.
Bernie could have endorsed you quicker.
He hurt me. There's no doubt about it. He hurt me. But going back to the indictments, because that's what's really important.
Have you ever spoken to Bernie about that?
No.
You don't talk to him?
I don't talk to him. Yeah, I mean, we did when he finally endorsed me and all that.
But you're upset with him?
No, disappointed. Okay. So And I hope he doesn't do it again to whoever gets the nomination.
Right.
Once is enough.
I'm of two minds after Bernie Sanders gets the nomination. Do we keep as far away from Hillary Clinton as possible because she's toxic and terrible at campaigning? Or do we, like Crystal Ball has suggested to me, maybe, deploy her somewhere unimportant?
Right.
But Ben, how many times do we deport her to the United Arab Emirates? Ben, how many times did Bernie Sanders campaign for Hillary Clinton?
I'm pretty sure more than she was campaigning for herself, literally during parts of the final stretch of the campaign in particular. So if you actually look at articles from October and November 2016, you'll see lots of articles like Wall Street Journal, Bernie Sanders PAC schedule with campaign stops for Hillary Clinton, the New Yorker, November 4th, 2016, Bernie Sanders hard fight for Hillary Clinton, talks about the weeks that he was traveling on Hillary's behalf. By the way, during this time when he was relentlessly campaigning, crisscrossing the country for Hillary, he was going where the campaign sent him, right? That he could make suggestions, but I mean they were telling him where to do these rallies. So he'd actually suggested, you guys think that I should be doing some events in Michigan and Wisconsin. And they shot it down, right? Because the algorithm said that he didn't need to. So that's something to keep in mind here. Another thing to keep in mind if you're looking at if you're evaluating this explanation, right? So you're saying, is it the case that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016, lost the electoral vote? That a significant part of the explanation for that is that Bernie Sanders was slow to endorse her. Well, if so, you might want to look at the analogy with 2008, when some older listeners might be able to remember that Hillary Clinton was a losing primary candidate. And in 2008, she actually not only waited for significantly longer after being mathematically eliminated from the possibility of getting a majority of pledged delegates, than Bernie Sanders did for his endorsement of Hillary in 2016. But
Ben, I just got to say before you finish that thought, just to complete something, Bernie did over 30 campaign events for her. 30. But that being said, Ben, and I don't want to step on your lead here, but maybe if Bernie Sanders had done something like, say, I should stay in through California in case she's assassinated, that might be legitimate grounds to be still pissed off, right?
Oh, yeah. No, that would be horrifying. I would absolutely understand why she would be upset if he'd said something like that. But of course, I mean, nobody would say that. I mean, that's a crazy thing. Like, you can't imagine anybody in mainstream politics making a statement like that.
No, I mean, honestly, even in the Trump era, that's an incredible thing to say, that I should stay in a primary in case my primary competition is assassinated. You know what else would be really weird is if you actually added a really weird racial dimension and horrifying historical event that actually did happen in the 60s to it. Wait a second. Did something like this actually happen? Let's go to the tape.
I find it a bit of a mystery.
You don't buy the party unity argument?
I don't, because again, I've been around long enough. My husband did not wrap up the nomination in 1992 until he won the California primary somewhere in the middle of June. Right? We all remember Bobby Kennedy was assassinated in June in California. I don't understand it. And, there's lots of speculation about why it is, but...
What's your speculation?
I don't know. I find it curious.
So Bernie Sanders saying, we're going to go to California and keep, by the way, not campaigning against her emails because I don't want to really run against her because I'm worried about the fate of the country, even though the Clintons are horrifying assholes that are antithetical to everything I've spent my life fighting for. We're going to go to California and keep talking about income inequality and health care. That Totally unacceptable. The Russians want it. Why you wouldn't drop out and endorse, and it's mathematically unwinnable for you, but you wouldn't drop out and endorse the first potential African-American president of the United States? No, because think about Bobby Kennedy in the Ambassador Hotel. That's something you just kind of got to keep it moving on. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think if you compare the two, I think that Hillary Clinton 2008 class acts, Bernie Sanders totally unacceptable.
We didn't even get to the part where Howard Stern and Hillary Clinton, maybe we could just get this really quickly. They both agree that there's a certain someone who is the quote unquote gold standard. And this certain someone has, I would say, upwards of 15 million bodies on their hands, if we have that. We don't?
It's bringing up the one where they talked about at the debate.
All right, look, it's fine. Basically, Howard Stern and Hillary Clinton love Henry Kissinger. And the fact that this multi-time coup-mongering war criminal and genocide backer liked her was a testament. Here, check this out. This is funny for us. Not if I'm looking at it from the Laotian, Cambodian, Chilean, Vietnamese, Cyprus, Chinese, Saudi, or literally, I mean, honestly, there's a whole world to lay to waste here. The point is, Henry Kissinger is disgusting. Listen to this.
Wanted in a president. And when you were Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger said, you were like an incredible secretary. And he is the gold standard. The guy's a brilliant guy.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
In a president.
Oh my God, these two old yentas.
Which really, by the way, because every liberal is obsessed and has been for the last few years with Russian interference, and like even if the Russians just wanted something, that's enough to make that thing bad, right? You know, that like if the Russians had a thought about the U.S. election, much less bought some incompetently designed Facebook ads or whatever, then that's enough for us.
We are Filipino bisexual horseback riders who hate Hillary very much. Like our Facebook page.
So I'm really fascinated to know if Hillary has ever chatted with her good friend and advisor, Henry Kissinger, about this. And if he recalls 1973, when he says, I think on the Nixon tapes, just because the Chile should be allowed to go communist just because their electorate is irresponsible.
I mean, here's my thing is Hillary Clinton, if there are the equivalent to her tapes, I would say probably said something similar about Honduras, except it would be like, Manuel Zelaya shouldn't be allowed to do a few extra things for poor people. They're dumb enough to ask for it.
Mild incremental social democratic measures in Honduras shouldn't be allowed just because the Hondurans were irresponsible.
Right.
Absolutely. And so it's really interesting too, because going back to the very first clip, the example is so asimine. Right, that he's saying, because Howard
doing
is
a Hillary impression, Ben. Right. Yep. Right.
Howard is digging into Hillary's bullshit narrative from her book about 7-minute abs or whatever.
Right.
But the example he's using is pre-universal college, and so if you really want to play this game, well, does anybody think that Bernie Sanders was against that in like 1980 or 1970? Right. I mean, that's like he's spent his entire life fighting for, at minimum, sweeping universal social democratic programs, and in his more radical moments, more than that. Right? He comes from a tradition of wanting even more than that. But absolutely, as a baseline, saying that you should have the basic goods of life provided to you just for being a person. That these things should be in the markets. That's been a consistent element of his politics all along, whereas Hillary Clinton, even going a little bit in that direction, was very obviously the result of ideological pressure from Bernie Sanders running against her. That
Right.
that she couldn't say, "Oh, I support nothing," so she had to come up with something that triangulated into some space in between nothing and what he was advocating. So it's pretty obvious that the chain of cause and effect goes the other way there. That Bernie Sanders put these issues on the table, and that meant that Hillary had to say something about them that would be watered down enough that the corporate donors wouldn't be spooked that much. That would signal that she's pre-negotiating with herself, but would be enough that her supporters could say, "See, Hillary Clinton supports this too. She just has a more realistic idea."
Right.
And if we're going to talk about things that Bernie Sanders has supported for decades and decades and decades consistently for as long as he's been in public life, which is a very long time, he has also consistently abhorred what people like Henry Kissinger have done. That he has consistently criticized U.S. meddling in Latin America, going back to when he was mayor of Burlington and earlier. And this is something that it's always so important to just circle and underline, because this is a absolutely fundamental difference between Bernie Sanders and everybody else running for president.
And I would also add the struggle to never have a woman president.
Yes. Yeah. No,
it's fundamental to my politics. That the reason that I supported marriage equality early on and voted against the Defense of Marriage Act and supported legalizing a woman's right to control her own body before Roe v. Wade is all part of a larger project of making sure that a woman could never be president of the United States.
Yeah. Just so in case he ever ran against one, he could use those things to defend himself. Yeah, no, absolutely.
No one ever got the real line of causation. I supported free college so there could never be a woman president.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like the three things that have always mattered to Bernie Sanders are sweeping universal social rights, cutting back, America's imperial presence in the world, and hardcore misogyny.
I don't think it's misogyny to say that they should be making cookies instead of making decisions.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. I'm
natural order.
I'm glad that we can
biology.
We don't have to beat around the bush.
I grew up in Flatbush, and I saw what happens when your mother tries to run the household.
Yeah,
it's like giving the ape a keys to a friggin' a UPS truck. Maybe fun to see on National Geographic. It's part of an experiment. But we should not be doing that, in my opinion, with all of our UPS trucks.
Yeah. There you go.
God. I don't know. I shouldn't even joke like that, because it will never cease to amaze me. I mean, I can for the brilliant people in the post game, but the absolute depths that people will go to convince themselves that Bernie Sanders is anything other than what he is, to justify their own objection to basic social democratic politics, is awe-inspiring.
Yeah,
it's so much better to talk to people that are just like, you know what? I realize that I'm fairly right-wing. I'm okay with a basic level of human deprivation and suffering, and any real change makes me uncomfortable, so I don't like Bernie Sanders. I can actually deal with that. Versus, I mean, right. Of course I oppose it fundamentally, but
sure. But like, have an honest conversation.
Lies but even like this Clinton thing, it's like he campaigned over 30 times. Like, we're not even talking like a technicality. Like, he did an event. Like, no, right. Over 30 times. I mean, it's just him and Corbyn, there is something about the modern world of like the disproportionality between just like nice old men that want you to have health care versus the just insane, demented nonsense that people have generated about them. And it's incredible.
when you were talking earlier about, you were quoting the senator's uncensored thoughts about women. I was thinking, it's like I was like trying to reach for an analogy, right? Believing that Bernie Sanders or his supporters are motivated by this is as ridiculous as, and the only thing I could come up with was thinking that Jeremy Corbyn of all people is an anti-Semite.
Right, exactly. The core narrative of the British elections would be the only thing analogously as stupid. It would be almost as absurd, and I say this as a strong critic of Hillary Clinton. It would be almost as ridiculous as saying that the Clintons took money and one of them flew around in the airplane of a serial pedophile. Like, it's just like when you go to that level, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it's that's such a ridiculous, over the top smear, that like, I just like it's just people aren't even going to take you seriously anymore when you say things like that like he was on the flight logs of this pedophile like hundreds of times, that they were regularly vacationing at one of his properties,
that his main madame or girlfriend or whatever was at their daughter's wedding. I mean, you just don't need to go into that stuff.
Check out the Arizona property. There might have been some visits there as well.
Might have been some visits there. I think it would be cool if Hillary got to the point though where she was just like, yeah, fuck it. She was just like, Jeffrey and I were talking about how stupid universal college education is. Jeffrey Epstein had a really interesting idea, which is why not have a loan system for community college and relevant training programs. He discussed that at the Arizona estate in between making his penis immortal to populate Mars.
Yeah.
But, fuck Bernie Sanders. Am I right, Howard? Yeah, fuck that guy. What an asshole. He did 30 events for me.
Yeah, right. But no, just the fact.
Well, I stayed in 2008 because Benazir Bhutto had just been assassinated, and I thought, who knows?
Die, man.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's right.
Ben Burgis, author of the very fantastic book, Give Them an Argument, Logic for the Left.
Oh, can I just throw in a quick shout out?
Yes, please.
So I have not watched the whole thing yet, but there's a YouTuber named Radical Reviewer who did like a half an hour video about Give Them an Argument, where he's like going through it point by point, and it's very fun. And it's very funny, and it's and he clearly read it carefully, and and so anyway, I would recommend that video to anybody who wants to check it out.
Awesome. All right, guys. Ben, thanks a million as always.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. You just watched a Michael Brooks Show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish. Click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.